What's up, everyone? Happy Wednesday and welcome into the TDR Trade to Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales. Hope you all are having a good week. Midweek, got a big guest coming up here today. Pablo Zuanic joins us. We want to dive in deep to a research report, actually, he did recently about Germany and the announcement last week. And yes, when you look at the headlines, they announced that adult use cannabis has been legalized. However, there's more that meets the eye to this announcement, and we'll dive into that and what he means by that in his report and what this could mean as far as the medicinal market in the German market and how it could potentially explode. And then some risks, I think, for certain companies that are within that German market. And he'll explain why in a little bit more. As well, we will dive into the Canadian CRA and how they're going to be coming after licensed producers of the Canadian market. Give you the latest on that. So let's jump right into it and welcome in TDR co-host Anthony Varell. Happy Wednesday. Hope you've had a good week. And
how's it going? It's been good so far. Got some positive news, the IIPR. We've got GTI coming right after the bell today. Trulieve in Verano tomorrow. It'll be a nice busy couple days.
Yeah, let's keep our eye on that because that's being announced right now after market, or probably it'll come around 4:15, 4:20. So if we get some numbers that were being announced during the live stream, maybe we could quick top line a few. But you're right, IIPR, that was an impressive earnings report. They've really expanded, increased 12% revenue. We'll get into that, but if you want to touch on it briefly, that was a strong earnings report for them.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. I mean, they're showing strength across the board. I mean, if you were going to have a canary in the coal mine for the sector, if the REIT started showing signs of stress, if the REIT started showing delinquency and not signs of strength, I think it'd be cause for concern. IIPR is the complete opposite. I mean, they've got $2.4 billion deployed in within 108 properties in 19 states. They're concentrated in some of the best markets that you'd want to be in the States. And I mean, they've got 29 tenants and 8.8 million square feet. This was another strong quarter for them. They raised the dividend. They reported strong revenue. They reported strong AFFO. IIPR is kicking ass across the board. They've been one of the OGs in the REIT space that's catering to the cannabis industry.
Yeah.
I expect them to show continued strength moving forward as well.
Yeah. I think some people are reaching out. They're commenting on your t-shirt, Sunburn Cannabis, and your good friend Brady Cobb when you went up there to see him. Nice t-shirt to say the least. Wonder if anybody likes the new black hoodies that we've got posted. Leave some comments below if you like those. And as well, leave a great comment. And whoever gets the best comment out there, then we'll get you a hoodie and get your address and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. Let's welcome in our other TD co-host, Guap. Guap, good to see you. Happy Wednesday. How are things, my friend?
Things are good. Here for earnings season. We've got Pablo on to talk about Deutschland. It's going to be a good show.
I know. All right, let's jump into today's podcast. This is Into the Wire, headlining all the biggest news in the industry of the cannabis industry. And we begin with an interesting story up north in the CRA, otherwise known as the Canada's Tax Collection Agency, and following through on a threat to garnish cash from licensed cannabis producers that are delinquent on their excise duty payments. And a lot of that reasoning behind this, Guap, is due to the fact that the amount of unpaid federal excise tax owed by countries cash-strapped where marijuana has skyrocketed. And in some cases, some of these numbers are pretty much astronomical. So what'd you make of this announcement? And it sounds like I said, the CRA is not messing around. They've waited long enough and they want their money and they want it now.
Yeah, the tax man cometh. They're here to garnish LP payments from the requested that provincial wholesalers garnish LP payments, which is wild.
It's wild.
So the estimates are, as of March 31st, 2023. So that's quite some time ago. LPs owed 192 million Canadian.
192.
The actual number is significantly higher than that. So LPs like Tilray, Sundial, Organigram, Village Farms, Decibel, Aurora, I think they're going to have an easier time of making those payments. It's going to not feel great, I'm sure, to do so, but some of their smaller competition, may not have an easy time making this happen. So it's both a positive and a negative for the Canadian space. I mean, obviously, it's going to hit some companies harder than others, but it's going to significantly mix up the landscape up there, and that's wild. But there is some good news. out of this. Also, mixed
What's
news.
the good news? Yeah.
Yeah. The Canadian Finance Committee recommended, this is not done deal yet, recommended that the excise tax be changed from, roughly, let's say 35% down to 10%. So that can have, for the companies that do come out of this sort of tax crunch a little stronger, having some smaller competition knocked out of the way, they're going to have to pay much lower taxes moving forward. If that,
we lose him.
The hell happened to Guap? Yeah, I mean, I kind of mimic his sentiment. This is overreach to an extent by the state. The Canadian LPs aren't being asked to pay their taxes; they're having their payments to the centralized authority garnished. This is pretty heavy stuff as far as everything is concerned.
I'm reading a story. Matt, or Guap, good to have you back on. But Matt Lammers from MJ Biz Daily, he writes, the amount of unpaid federal excise tax owed by Canada's cash-strapped marijuana companies had skyrocketed to almost 200 million Canadian dollars as of March 31, 2023, a nearly threefold increase over the previous fiscal year's outstanding tax obligations of 52.4 million Canadian. So you can understand why they want their money, but yeah, it's going to change a lot of landscape in this industry within Canada, knowing that there are a lot of money, or companies, I should say, that are cash strapped. Right?
It's going to torpedo some companies potentially. I mean, there's some Canadian LPs that don't exactly have the biggest cash reserves going. By the way, GTI just reported 278 million, 7% year over year increase in revenue. They got 162 million in cash at quarter's end. GAAP net income of 3 million, or 1 penny per basic diluted share. 91 million in adjusted EBITDA. 71 million cash flow from operations. So I mean, that's healthy. And one of the biggest surprises, but we kind of saw this coming, they repurchased 25 million of senior debt, and they bought 15 million back of the company's stock within the quarter. So Ben is using that $25 million buyback program to buy back the stock, with 15 million of it being bought back in the quarter.
Sounds strong. If I can quickly top
1.1 billion in revenue for 2023.
Wow.
Top line.
Wow.
Yeah. Adjusted EBITDA of $326 million. So you can only imagine how much these numbers are going to. Then I mean, the numbers aren't going to grow, but the fundamentals are going to improve when 280E goes away and we actually get some sort of rescheduling.
Yeah.
So congrats, Ben. Another bang up quarter. GTI is doing a masterclass in how to actually run a cannabis company and make money.
1.1 billion, you said?
1.1 billion for 2023.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Guap, sorry, you lost the drug. We lost your signal there, but you're back on. And you wanted to finish your thought, or do you want to touch on even just some of the GTI numbers that Anthony just outlined?
No, I'm good on the Canadian story. Obviously, we're going to. We might even have a live stream tomorrow just to go through some of these earnings reports, including the GTI one. So I want to wait until I have a chance to, read through it and all. But we forget these are real businesses. GTI is one of the best cash flow.
We lost him again. What the heck?
Yeah. So by the way, just so I can reiterate, $15 million in stock was repurchased for the quarter.
Yep.
$40 million worth of stock was repurchased for 2023 for the year. So they are buying back their stock at these depressed prices.
Well, Guap was saying before he fell off again there that, yes, we are actually going to do a live stream tomorrow. So all of our viewers out there, make sure to log on tomorrow, 4 o'clock Thursday. I know we do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but it's full on earnings season. It's begun. So we'll have a quick in-depth look. We're going to actually bring in Bill McFarland, head of research from here at TDR, to talk more about the earnings of GTI, along with Trulieve and Verano that are announcing that pre-market tomorrow. So we got some big heavyweights coming up this week. And clearly we're off to a great start with IIPR and now GTI with some very promising numbers. This is Into the Wire here on the TDR Trade to Black podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. And here's Guap. Guap,
I figured it out. It was a setting. Chrome was crashing because I was trying to use the touch-up settings to get rid of some of my wrinkles. But I'm back and full of wrinkles for the rest of the show.
Yeah. We have Pablo Zuanic coming on. A couple of you have commented already, but we're going to get this Into the Wire segment completed. We have one more announcement basically to talk about, but we're going to get started in about 5 minutes. As usual, make sure that you like this video, share this video within your network, and make sure to subscribe to our channel. We want to build this community, and we need your support. So appreciate you, obviously, for all you people that check in every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Love having you on. Leave comments below. Leave us any feedback on any companies you want us to touch on. If anything we're missing, we'll reach out to our network and make sure we get the answers to a lot of your questions. All right, Into the Wire, headline 2. We touched on it earlier, Anthony. Up 12% in their latest earnings. IIPR from their earnings back on yesterday, which was Tuesday. First glance at this, as you said, they've really expanded their footprint into 19 states. But all in all, it looks like the strongest REIT in the cannabis industry got a little bit stronger based on their latest report.
Yeah, I mean, the metrics for the quarter were all strong. They had $79 million in total revenue for the quarter. Their net income, which is attributable to stock shareholders' equity, was $41 million or $1.45 a share. Like I said, the AFFO was $64 million.
Yeah.
And they paid a dividend of $1.82 per common share.
Okay.
I mean, I've said this a couple of times. We're in a great period of uncertainty in the cannabis industry. I don't understand why some people think it doesn't make sense to hold the REITs and get paid a dividend while we're waiting for this uncertainty to subside.
Well,
it makes sense as a practical part of constructing a portfolio for cannabis. I mean, they're paying out $1.82 a share. That's granted, it's expensive. The stock on a per share basis, I think it closed the day around like 98 and change. So it is relatively expensive on a per share basis. But that's a healthy dividend.
That's a very healthy dividend, especially this early on in this stage of the industry. $1.82 per share. Wow.
Yeah, and they've raised the dividend again for I forget how many. It's 6 consecutive quarters or something. They've raised the dividend. IIPR.
Yeah. Oh, I could hear Rob Seacrest, Anthony Coniglio, and a lot of these people that are on the real estate side patting you on the back, because that is actually a very good sentiment to think about uncertain times. And if you like the industry, this is definitely a side that you should consider. Guap, did you get a chance to see some of the earnings? But again, like Anthony's point, impressive to say the least.
I did, yeah. And I one of the first stocks I invested with in the cannabis space was IIPR for this very reason. You know, they're on the NASDAQ. They service the whole space. They were providing capital to companies that needed it through sale leasebacks. I mean, there's a lot to like there. And I do think the space suffers from a bit of MSO blindness, if I'm being honest. You know, we're very zeroed in on that thesis playing out. There's ancillary companies, there are REITs. There's even some Canadian cannabis that doesn't get nearly the respect it deserves. And so, you know, it's nice to see, you know, IIPR, you know, catching a bid again and starting to generate some good results. The one question I wanted to press Anthony on, because we were talking about this before the show. So on behalf of the audience, what I hear a lot when it comes to IIPR is, okay, safe banking and Schedule 3 is going to come through rather soon, imminently. What happens to IIPR when those two things happen? Aren't there going to be just money flowing and low interest loans available, and doesn't IIPR's business all go away?
So yes and no. If anything, the credit quality of the tenants becomes much stronger overnight. I mean, the risk in the portfolio also lessens now that the fundamentals are changing on the businesses. And let's not forget that these are sale leasebacks. So the tenants don't actually own the buildings.
Right.
The tenants can't go to refi the building. The tenant, I can't be sitting in a 1 million square foot grow in Pennsylvania and be like, oh, Schedule 3, I now have access to Bank of America. Let me go refi this loan through them. They don't have the liberty of doing that. They're locked into the leases with IIPR. IIPR's got them for 10 to 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if anything, this is going to allow IIPR to access cheaper and deeper pools of capital to be able to actually expand their business.
Yeah. Christopher Brady, he's back again with that interesting question. I don't even know if
I don't get the question.
I don't get it
if
either.
rescheduling happens, it's going to be everywhere.
Well,
You're going to
CNN
see it
and
on
Fox News
CNN,
breaking
Fox,
news.
ESPN. You'll see it everywhere.
Will
That
it
news
be
will go everywhere.
Carefully noticed headline on page 5? How? I don't know. I'm not the editor at some of
Yeah, I
these,
don't know.
but
Yeah.
put it this way, it'll make news and it'll be on a lot of the mainstream networks. Whether it happens imminently, as Guap would say, it'll get announced. But whether it takes a day or 2 days, it'll filter into people across the country. So stand pat, stay patient, Christopher. Everything will be just fine. But yes, this will get coverage across all mainstream media platforms. I also noticed somebody commented, and we were actually talking about this before the show, Mitch McConnell retiring in November. Yeah. And I know a lot of cannabis people, with all due respect, wish him nothing but a healthy retirement. Hopefully he's healthy wise. But there's a lot of people from this industry will not miss Mitch McConnell, right?
I'm not gonna tap dance on his grave or anything, but yeah, I'm happy to see him go. Get out of safe and everything else. Before we get too excited, let's see who comes and replaces him. Let's use a little second order thinking here. Think about the consequences. So the replacement might not be that much better, but yeah, I mean, a sick little part of me is thrilled to see that turtle hit the road. He's still in the Senate, though.
Yeah.
And
he's stepping down as the Republican leader.
Sorry, Happy Burner writes, not retiring, stepping down for his role, as I understand. That's probably correct.
Optics on his health conditions when he was having those moments in front of the camera, obviously not great for the party. So he was, I think he's stepping down when he should. And there should be more leaders who think that way. To be perfectly honest.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right, gents, that concludes Into the Wire, outlining the biggest headlines in cannabis. I am your host, Shad Dales, with Anthony Varell and Guap here in the TDR Traded Black podcast. It's now time for segment number 2, which is known as our exclusive guest interview of the week. Let's welcome in analyst. Sorry, you on mute there, Anthony? Sorry, you were. Thought you were saying something. Let's welcome in industry analyst from Zuanic and Associates, Pablo Zuanic, back to the podcast. Good to see you, sir, and happy Wednesday. How are things?
I'm doing good. Thank you very much for having me again. Congrats on all your work.
I appreciate it. And you know what? You've been really pounding out some really good information as well. I know Anthony and Guap brought it to our attention, or my attention, the last couple of days. It was a research report pertaining to Germany. And as many people know, like we got the news last week about how adult use has been legalized. But there were some interesting things that you pointed out with this research report that's more that meets the eye than just past this, the headline. So we've touched on this a couple times already with the podcast as to what's been included, what's legal, what's not. But when we look at this headline from a broader view, what stands out to you most, knowing that a lot of these stocks based off the announcement really haven't moved?
Yeah, the main thing, of course, it's the change in the way that medical cannabis is classified in Germany, right? It was classified as a narcotic with significant restrictions in terms of the way it was prescribed, in the way it was produced or imported, in the way it was stored by pharmacies. And now it becomes, it still requires a prescription, but it's a much, much simpler process. On the surface, it may not seem like much, but it's significant, right? So what I would say that there's 3 or 4 things to touch on about the changes that you're seeing in this new German law. But there are changes at the regulatory level in various countries that sometimes we miss, right? In Australia, for example, in late 2021, there was a change in the way doctors prescribe cannabis. And exports from Canada to Australia are probably up about 10 times over the last 3 years. The latest data shows that Australia is about 4 times the number of exports going from Canada to Germany. So what I'm trying to say here is that these changes on the surface may not seem like much, but they are significant, right? So point one, the change, the way it's being rescheduled, or some people like to say descheduled.
Yep.
It's not descheduled because it's still a prescribed medicine, but it's a much simpler process. And I can delve into details. For example, at the moment, in the case of medical cannabis in Germany, it's prescribed as a last resort. So, doctors have to show that 2 or 3 other alternatives did not work. It's a laborious and long process in terms of a prescription. And the market mostly is being confined to what you call the reimbursed market by its state insurance. The cash market is still only starting to develop. So the big picture message is that in Germany right now, in the medical cannabis, you probably have about 120,000 patients, right? When we say patients, is that people come in and out of a program, but that's, call it 0.1, 0.2% of the population, very small compared to, say, Florida, 3.5%, Pennsylvania, 4%, or Canada, 1%. So we can go into more details, but to me, that's the most significant change. And of course, it creates a number of opportunities for some of the companies you've mentioned, Aurora, Tilray among the Canadians, and Curaleaf, which owns 420 Pharma there. The other thing I would mention, so one topic and what I'm very focused on is what this will mean for the growth and the economics of the medical market in Germany.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. You talked about explosive growth on the near-term horizon. Go ahead. Sorry to cut you off.
No. So I'll give you numbers, but the second thing I want to mention is that there are other changes, right? Cannabis is being decriminalized, if you want to use that word. It means that people can have about 25 grams in public, right? 50 grams at home. People are going to be allowed to have 3 plants to grow 3 plants at home. There will also be social cannabis clubs, with up to 500 members. So, we try to discern through all of that what's relevant and what's not, right? In terms of the home grow, if people are already doing it, they will continue to do it. I don't expect a big change in terms of homegrown or impact to the market overall. In terms of the cannabis clubs, we've seen something similar in Malta. There are cannabis clubs in Spain, but they are, more illegal than legal. It's difficult to grow cannabis at scale, but also in a smaller place. I'm somewhat skeptical that the cannabis social clubs will make a big impact, but obviously we'll have to monitor them. But to be 100% clear, more home growth, right? More supply from the cannabis clubs could be a threat to the market, you could say, right? Could be a source of competition. We will monitor it, but right now we're not very focused on that. I'm going to be more focused on the negative side in terms of decriminalization, right? And on the positive side, on the explosive growth of the medical market. Just one quick word in terms of decriminalization. In a US context, when we hear that word, decriminalization without a framework of enforcement, it's a problem, right? And it's been a problem. Just look at New York, the way you can easily buy, cannabis in retail shops. Many of them are licensed, we're supposedly 1,000. There's no real enforcement, right? Or on and off. We've seen it in California. So when cannabis is decriminalized, it creates a source of competition, and it makes the economics in the market very messy. In the case of Germany, we are being told that there will be a framework of enforcement. So, people supposedly will be very careful about what they do in terms of carrying cannabis, not reselling publicly. There will be stiff penalties. And on top of that, we are told by our sources there that culturally, Germans would not be necessarily opening illegal stores to retail cannabis, and Germans would not be going to those illegal retail stores to buy cannabis. Let's wait and see about that, right? But this decriminalization, to me, on the surface, it's always a source of risk. But all that.
But I tend to agree with that, though. I don't think that the Germans are going to start opening illegal shops and kind of just go into like a lawless society. Like, I'm taken back with what's going on in New York, to be honest. Like, I never thought that a major US city would have illegal drug dispensaries that are just open to the public the way that it's going in New York. Like, when I first went to Vancouver in 2015, I experienced an illegal dispensary that was just right in the open. And I thought I was in the Twilight Zone. Yeah. I was like, if this was ever in the United States, the police would be kicking the door in, chaining it up, and it would be out of business. And that is not happening today in America.
And here you are. Yeah.
So that's why you go. I mean, in the case of Germany, obviously we will monitor that, especially cities like Berlin, right? But going back to the medical side of things, it's a significant opportunity, right? And again, people did not pay attention to what was happening in Australia, and that's been a big source of growth for the Canadian cannabis companies. and we think Germany could be even a greater source of upside. And I'll walk you through the numbers here. But I think that, if I step back for a second, I give credit, to the Canadian authorities. We can discuss the way the program has been implemented, but at the end of the day, Canada has developed this moat, right? They have it in forestry, they have it in mining. Canadian companies have been able to translate that into overseas business and international opportunities. And I believe that in the case of cannabis, the same thing will happen, right? In Australia, 80% of imports are from Canada. In Germany, about 50% of imports are from Canada. But if you adjust, from Tilray shipments from Portugal, or in the past, Aurora from Denmark, the share of Canadian product in Germany is probably higher than 50%, right?
That's interesting.
With the boom,
we are, as you said at the beginning, as you said at the beginning in the show, right? We are all very focused on the mesos, and rightly so. The opportunities are significant. We are rescheduling all of that. We all know that. But I will give credit to the Canadian authorities in terms of the mode that's been developed, and to the Canadian companies that have built an infrastructure, domestic and overseas. And yes, it's been painful for many of them. They have taken a lot of debt, but I think that the ones that are still around, the ones that are still that still have the assets overseas, are poised for great opportunities. And again, I mentioned there Tilray and Aurora. You could also mention Canopy Growth. They also have an overseas business there. But I'll stop there. We can go into the numbers and the upside, but again, kudos to Canada, and do focus on these Canadian companies, because sometimes we just focus on the stocks because of the poor economics of Canada, but we're in the domestic reg market, but we're beginning to see is some consolidation, prices beginning to stabilize, and some companies emerging with significant market share. Look at it in vape and pre-rolls, companies like Decibel, Village Farms, strong flower player in the reg market. So I think that I don't want to say that things are beginning to normalize. It's been painful in the Canadian reg market, but I think we're beginning to see clear signs of winners and losers. And you mentioned the CRA at the beginning. Obviously, that will be another catalyst, in my opinion, for consolidation. But now we have these doors opening out overseas, right? And
it's something you have to focus on, though, right?
Of course, people should focus on the export business. The stocks haven't reacted.
So obviously, this is a net positive for the export business of the Canadian LPs today. But with the boom that we're going to see in the medical market, and let's say that they actually get adult use, like we see adult use in the United States, moving years down the road. Don't you see them allowing cultivation and deploying CapEx domestically, and growing products, so they're not at the mercy of the Canadian LPs and importing all this flower?
Right. So okay, let's go through that. So you're talking about potential source of competition in Germany. So to be clear, right now, like we said, the market is 0.2% of the population in the medical market. If you take Florida numbers, Pennsylvania numbers, the market would be 20 times bigger, right? And the average spend is 150 euros to 100 euros per month. So the market could increase dramatically. I think companies are being very responsible in terms of trying to estimate that upside, because that growth will not happen overnight. But to be very clear in terms of how we think about that upside, right? Right now, on the reimbursed market has not been growing, because again, it's very difficult for doctors to prescribe. The cash market has begun to develop, but at a slow pace, right? There's more online clinics, there's more online pharmacies, and on paper, it's still somewhat easy for a regular patient to get cannabis. But most doctors are still reluctant to prescribe. Right now, you're going to have your regular GP. He'll be able to prescribe you cannabis without having to go through the process for a narcotic. It will be much simpler. And we think that we'll see what's happening in Australia, happening in Germany, which will have more and more online clinics emerge and more online pharmacy emerge. Because it's not a narcotic anymore, you will be able to do all via telehealth, right? So even in Florida, telehealth is not allowed, right? And 4% of the people are there in the medical program.
Right.
So you have it, order online, see your doctor online, order online, have it delivered to your door. The last time I checked, I think the cost of delivery is like €5 or less. So very simple process. The question mark right now is that if the cash market, if you have all this ease in the cash market so far, why has the market not developed so much, right? We're calculating cash market is 30,000 patients, reimbursed 80,000. And I think that the answer is that it was still a narcotic. It was still very difficult to prescribe. So you think the exception.
You think doctors are going to be more inclined to prescribe now based off of this announcement?
That's right. I mean, I had someone give me an example. Anecdotally, he said, he has like an auntie doctor that can write prescriptions for him. And when he asked for the cannabis prescription in the past, he would have never done it, that doctor, because it was a narcotic, right? Pink sheet, she could lose her license. Now it's a much easier. So in general, it's mentally an easier process, in terms of administrative, less risk and much easier. So, but nothing happens overnight. I think that, I don't want to say culturally, but the mindset also has to change, right? And here comes a part of the companies. I'm sure the companies that have feet on the ground, people on the ground, will continue to visit doctors. There will be, your usual marketing tools, right? You will do seminars, you will market to doctors, and the industry should grow. So again, if we're, simplistically speaking, you take 150 euros a month, 1% of the population, which is a Canadian level, which is low, right? You get to almost 1.7 billion euros, 2 billion euros, right? And again, if you want to say 3-4% like Florida, you can be talking, 7 billion euros. So it's a significant market. That's one part, right? In terms of, so we can see explosive growth in medical cannabis, and we think it will happen, and we will monitor again the threat from the decriminalization, the threat from the clubs, and we'll see, how quickly the mindset of doctors changes, how entrepreneurial they are in Germany in terms of opening online clinics, online pharmacies, and serving this demand. But we think that it will happen. Now, in terms of that's in terms of the market growth. In terms of Anthony's question and the opportunities, what's interesting right now, although there's about 100 licensed importers in Germany, only about 40 of them are active, and 5 or 6 companies have about 70-80% share of the market, right?
Okay.
So Tilray, Aurora,
yeah,
to Curalifia, 420 Pharma, a local company called Demecan, Canna Medical. So the point is that you have and Canopy Growth also. So you have 6 companies with 75-80% of the market. So now we go back to Anthony's question, right? So how does the market develop? With the new law, although it's not explicitly written on the new law, but it will be implemented in the course of a year, in terms of domestic production, companies will be able to opt for a license to be allowed to produce cannabis in Germany, right?
Yeah.
At the moment, roughly, and there's a lot of nuances with the numbers, and the numbers include dronabinol, epidiolex, but about, pharmacies are buying about 5 tons of cannabis, medical cannabis, a quarter, called that 20 tons. The local production, there's only 3 companies that are allowed to produce in Germany right now: Demecan, private German company, Aurora, and Tilray. They have an allowance about 2.6 tons, which they're not using in full. So you could say that 95%, more than 95% of the local demand is being served by imports, right?
Okay.
And about half of that is Germany, Canada, and probably higher. Now, is that going to change significantly overnight? It takes 2 to 3 years, for a green field for someone to be up and running. And with German rules, probably longer, because of the very strict, has to be EU GMP compliant, very thick walls for protection and security. So we think that, yes, there could be more domestic production over time, but because of the weather, good luck with greenhouses, right? In Australia, you see houses, in Germany. So again, people.
So what's the big takeaway then, Pablo? When we look at this German market and this announcement, like, I can sit here and ask the question, where's the industry 3 to 5 years from now? But over the next immediate term of 12 months, is this still going to be, as much as there is a big announcement, it's going to be a slow rollout? And, we shouldn't be buying too much into, like, basically what these headlines are, because we're going to need to see real actual numbers increase, which sounds like it's going to take time.
I'd say that, look, I mean, that's what the stocks are telling you, if this is an efficient market, right? And I don't think it's an efficient market, but people are pretty much assuming that it's sell the news, right? That it's nothing. To be honest, I would take a more positive spin on that, right? I would say that, again, the market should at least double over a short period of time, because you go from 0.2% of the people to 0.4, you've doubled the market, right? And 0.4 is still very tiny.
Yeah.
But the takeaway, I think that one takeaway is that we can discuss the pace of the market growth. The second takeaway that I think people miss is the incumbents in terms of the supply chain, right? Because, to be clear, I said there's 40 importers, but many of these companies import in small batches or they import from many different companies. They rotate. They don't have enough consistency. So I would focus that when I said that there's 5 or 6 companies that have 75% of the market at the moment, that may change over time, but they have a first mover advantage. And again, if I can be very, very brief here, people like Aurora and Tilray, they have, if you want, a full supply chain, right? Either from Canada or from Portugal, selling into the market and selling under their own brand in the German market, right? And that's consistency, safety of supply. I think that's very important to the doctors, to the pharmacies, and to the patients. In the case of Relief, they own 420 Pharma, which is a local importer, and I understand they have supplies from different parts of the world, including Canada, and they do very well. They claim to have about 20% share in the flower market. So is Curaleaf eventually going to buy another supplier in Canada or someone to be fully integrated into Germany? We'll see about that. But I would say, those 3 I mentioned, people, may have I think are missing out on the fact that there's a big opportunity for those type of companies in terms of the German market. So yes, let's see how quickly it grows. Let's see whether this consolidated nature of the market remains or it changes, right? Let's see. But I would say, again, because of the very stiff regulations in Germany across the supply chain, companies that are already in place that know the market and have scale will have an advantage, right? And we'll see what happens in terms of how quickly domestic production grows. I think that will take time. So imports will still be the main supplier of the market. And I would say Canada particularly will be a strong player there. So I think that's the upshot, is that you have these companies that maybe people forget about or focus too much on the MSOs. But I would say that some of these Canadian exporters are in a great position to benefit from that market.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, it sounds like the Canadian LPs have a pretty damn good moat that they have in the German market right now, having that first mover advantage for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. And you see that number only increasing over time?
In terms of the demand growth, or in terms of the suppliers?
Just as far as like the percentage, as like Anthony was saying, with regards to Germany's 75 to 80% strength on the actual market itself, do you see that growing on the next year or two and becoming increasingly higher?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, if you want to keep, if we take what I always say, 200 per capita on 85 million people, right? 200 is a Massachusetts number. You get to 17 billion euros in Germany, right? That's a reg market. What we haven't touched on here, is there going to be a domino effect in medical markets in Europe? Is there going to be a domino effect on reg?
Yeah.
Right? Remember,
Denmark's already talking about something on the heels of the German legislation passing.
I mean, look, 2 years ago, I was reading a report I wrote on the subject, right? In the case of Germany, we were talking about a reg market because that's what the government coalition wanted to get done, right? They couldn't get it done because of EU rules, so they have scaled back their plan, and now they have what we just talked about, the change in the narcotic law and changes in decriminalization. But again, we think that the changes with the medical market in Germany will also have a domino effect in other markets in Europe. Some of the other markets already have medical cannabis that is legal, but when we say legal medical cannabis, there are many nuances, like we've seen in Germany, going from a narcotic to a regular prescription. So you will see that. And again, companies that are based in Germany right now, that's the largest market in Europe right now for medical cannabis, are in a good position to grow and expand in Czech, Poland, UK, and other places in Europe. But again, if I had to summarize in one line, I think that the Canadian companies, especially the larger ones, that have built that export mode, should be getting credited for that, and people should focus on the fact that they have a fully integrated supply chain, selling with their brand, right? It's not like you're exporting a commodity without a brand and someone else controls the supply, the distribution chain on the other side. These companies have their own brands being sold in the market and being stocked in pharmacies, or if you go online on and you check an online pharmacy and you check their menu, you can see the brand there, right? In the case of Aurora or Tilray.
Huh.
Hey, Pablo, I wanted to jump in here. Appreciate the report. It was amazing because I think the investor base out there, which is mostly retail, went from a sentiment high of, yay, German legalization, to, oh, wait, no, Pillar 2's not happening. And where your report fills in is, okay, here's where the growth happens in Pillar 1, which was refreshing and fully detailed. So if we assume the reimbursed market stays steady, right, this is people who are using health insurance to get cannabis, which is something that's not possible in the United States, so it's noteworthy. But it requires seeing a physician. It's prescribed as a last resort, is I believe the words you said. So let's say that stays the same. And then it becomes far easier for the big takeaway for me is it becomes way easier for all of these doctors and patients or just regular people using whatever condition they have to get a medical cannabis card and then go into an apothecary and buy products. I think your estimates, at 1% of the population, whereas Florida's at 3.5%, that's a conservative start. That's a good case of where it could begin. I think everyone at home needs to keep in mind, Germany's got 80 million plus, Florida's got 20 million. This is like a state the size, 4 times the size of Florida, who's just starting their medical program because the access is going to be there. So, all that being said, what have you heard about Pillar 2? That's where I'm really curious. Obviously, you can't give timeline or promises of how it rolls out, but what's the next stage even look like?
Right. The next stage, Pillar 2, supposedly you have pilots at the regional or municipal level where you have either local production or imports supplying licensed stores to sell recreational cannabis. But that Pillar 2, it hasn't been flushed out. And obviously, it's not going to be implemented for the time being, and it has to be approved, right? You have to remember that the coalition government, supposedly there's elections sometimes in 2025. Most of the people that we talk to do not believe that this Pillar 2 will be implemented during this government, right? And the surveys indicate that, the Christian Democrats or more conservative parties could gain control of the new government. So I'm personally very skeptical of Pillar 2. That said, if you were to ask me, could Pillar 1 be reversed? We think it's unlikely because whoever is the next government, it's a parliamentary system, it will probably be a coalition and they will have to agree on some things. So we think that Pillar 1 will remain. On the rec market side, on the Pillar 2, I'd be more skeptical, right? I mean, kudos to High Tide, right? They have a deal with a company in Germany that will allow them to develop and open retail stores for the sale of rec cannabis when that happens. But I don't think that that's happening for the time being. But again, to me, I think the opportunity on the medical market is significant nonetheless. And like you said, right, we are working with 1%. It could be 3-4%. One thing to add to your point there, I'm assuming that the reimbursed market will not, and it's mostly public insurance, government-related insurance, will not grow because it hasn't been growing. Some companies believe that because of the change in the procedures and because it's no longer a narcotic, and because doctors will be more willing to prescribe, that insurance companies will be willing to play ball, right? Let's see about that. I'm not so sure about that. But some companies believe that the reimbursed market could grow significantly. And again, on the cash side of things, it's supply and demand, right? Supposedly the demand is there, and the supply side, where it's more doctors, again, your regular GP, the online clinic, the online pharmacy, that supply side will increase, right? And that will help the market develop. And what we'll keep an eye on, again, it's how consolidated the industry remains, right? Right now, 5-6 companies, 70-80% share. If they can hold on to that, they'd be in a great place, right? Step back for 1 second. We'll have to do analysis and say, Pennsylvania, if it goes rec, Jushi is very well positioned. Virginia goes rec, Jushi and Columbia Cannabis are very well positioned. And that's true. But like we saw in New York, right? Suddenly the rules change or the way the rec program gets implemented changes. And then you're not benefiting as much, right? The MSOs are still benefiting very little from the New York market, right? So the same thing, let's see in Germany. But for the time being, we are very excited about the way the medical market in Germany could develop and grow. And also I think excited about the opportunity for some of the players I've mentioned to maintain that moat, right? Because you have that full supply chain to service the market.
Well, look, whether you take it one way or the other, these are all incremental steps for the growth of the industry. It was an announcement that had to happen. We have to look at it this way. But again, it takes time. But needless to say, the Canadian players have definitely built a strong market share and do need a pat on the back for what they've done as far as establishing yourselves within that market. But all in all, I think this just, as you said, opens up the doors, I think, for other EU countries. Aling Sterling writes, Boris Jordan compared the Germany medical market to the early days of the California medical market. I do remember him saying that. So that's maybe a good point or good comparison.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, listen, appreciate you checking in. Let's please keep in touch. Hopefully we see you in a couple of weeks. Time's flying by, but we see you down in Florida for the Benzenga conference.
Yep,
and,
sure.
Keep up the great work and the hard work, and try to get some sleep.
No, that's good. Thank you. All right.
All right. Thanks,
Thank you,
Pablo.
Pablo.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
That was interesting. Learned a lot about.
Yeah, it's interesting. The more I think about the German market, I mean, essentially what they've done is they've descheduled it and they've just created a more robust medical market. I mean, it's not a true adult use market. Like, you're not going to see dispensaries like Illinois, California, Arizona, Colorado. That's not happening anytime soon. They've just legitimized cannabis and poured jet fuel on their medical program.
So
the clubs are interesting. The clubs are really interesting.
I don't know a lot about the clubs, but like, what does that whole landscape look like?
Yeah, I mean, I would just like to jump in and say there's a massive cultural shift that's about to happen in Germany. There's very few people who have a medical cannabis card in a country of 80 million, and they consume alcohol like 50% more alcohol. I tweeted some stats out earlier than people in the United States. So it's not part of the culture yet, right? And so if you suddenly allow people to carry an ounce on them, home grow, these clubs start popping up. I mean, Pablo put a 1% conservative estimate out there just to have something in a spreadsheet that works out to 1.7 billion. Who knows how it's all going to play out, but it's a massive cultural shift and it has a huge ripple effect across Europe, like I've been saying. So these clubs
it's not every social club. It's exclusive social clubs that they're going to be opening. Is that understanding correctly?
The clubs are capped. The clubs are capped at 500 members per club.
Gotcha.
You can only join one club.
Yeah.
And tourists can't, just walk into the club and buy cannabis. No. So it's pretty cool.
It's capped at 500 per club. How many clubs are there in total?
It has yet to be determined. I mean, these
it's
going to be July, and they're going to.
I don't want to pontificate too much here, but I really think this is how it's going to play out. The market right now, it's going to start to grow, and no one's going to take it seriously unless you start to see the numbers start to take shape in Aurora, Tilray, Curaleaf's earnings report. If you start to see robust patient growth and if you start to see the numbers actually build, then everybody's going to start to take notice.
But you're right. Big culture change. That's for sure. Like, if you're actually going to certain clubs where it's allowed, like, there's a lot, like you said, alcohol consumption. Like, I've never been to Germany, but into Europe, and there's a lot of people that like to smoke cigarettes a lot more than what they do here in North America. But is that different on how they view and consume cannabis in comparison to the way we view it and consume it here in North America? Like, do you have shed any light on that? If either one of you know?
Cannabis is different. Cannabis is different culturally in the EU versus the United States.
A lot more years behind, correct?
Yeah, I wouldn't say years behind. I mean, they just take a much more conservative approach to it. I mean, Europe's not Amsterdam. Everywhere. I mean, I know in the UK at least, it's a lot more of a conservative approach. You don't see as many people smoking cannabis as you do drinking, per se.
And still very conservative in Latin America. When I was in Colombia, you do not bring up the word cannabis or marijuana, even on the street. Not a good thing to say. But yeah, it's a lot different. But learned a lot there from Pablo, that's for sure. Don't forget, everybody, tomorrow, 4:00, we're actually going to come back live stream. We're going to dive into the Green Thumb's latest numbers along with Verano and Trulieve. I actually got a text while Pablo was talking. Somebody wrote that the results for GTI were, good, not great. One of the things they mentioned was that revenue growth only 4% over the full year. TerrAscend and MariMed, for example, are north of 30%. So
TerrAscend's the number one. TerrAscend's the number one growth platform for top line revenue in the industry.
Yeah.
They were also a big beneficiary of Maryland coming online. They're crushing it in New Jersey. They're crushing it in Michigan. I'm curious to see TerrAscend's earnings here this quarter because I'm thinking they're going to put up growth again. But growth projections, we knew that Green Thumb was going to come in with a muted quarter. I'm impressed with the stock buybacks, and I'm impressed with the margin, and I'm actually going to listen to Ben's call in 10 minutes, so I'm sure we'll have plenty to say.
1.1 billion. It's a big number.
Tomorrow. Kim might come over the top with that with Trulieve tomorrow. Verano might be there too.
Go ahead.
I'm just impressed with any cannabis company in the United States of America that can be super cash flow positive as Green Thumb is with 280 in place. And I'm still looking forward after all these year-end earnings come out. I'm still looking forward to that Sammy J 280 super tweet because that's where, if markets are forward looking, let's see what these 2023 year-end numbers look, and then let's factor in 280 going away and a few other things.
I don't care.
Yikes, amazing stuff.
Yeah, not to dampen it, but I don't really care what Verano, Trulieve, and GTI are doing now. I care what Verano, Trulieve, and GTI are doing with Florida adult use, with Ohio adult use, with Pennsylvania adult use, with some semblance of a New York market, and 280 gone away. That's what I'm buying the stocks for today. What that could look like tomorrow is immensely different from a market.
Your eyes my eyes just went 777s when I thought about that. What you just said.
That's where everyone's buying stock. That's where everyone's buying stocks right now.
Markets. So people, stop complaining about the stocks going up and down on a day-to-day basis. Chill, man. This is good. We've got a lot of catalyst moments as we outlined last week. As usual, people, as I said before, please share this video with your network. Click on that bell for notifications and subscribe. But what we mean by like and comments is that the more that you like this video, the more comments you give, the better that actually shows up in the algorithms on the back end of YouTube, which makes this video go viral. And we want this message to go viral. So we want to build this community. So if you haven't liked this video or this podcast yet, please do so. We really appreciate it. And again, a reminder, we are back on here tomorrow, 4 o'clock, to talk about Verano, GTI, and Trulieve. Gentlemen, in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Go listen to those earnings call, and we'll check back in with you in about 23 hours.
Talk to you guys tomorrow.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. And if you want to learn more about the emerging industries that we cover, then leave a comment below and let us know who you want us to interview, the questions you want asked, and the information that you want to learn. We want to hear from you. As usual, click on that bell for all notifications to get the latest information. Share this video with your network, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we would not be